Visit by Nancy Pelosi, that's the United States House Speaker. And of course, she went there. Now, China believes that Taiwan is still part of China. Taiwan sees itself as an independent country. I think this is very, very worrying indeed. I don't like this one bit. But to shed some light on this, I'm going to talk now to Dr. Alan Mendoza, who is Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. Good afternoon to you.
Hello, David.
Good to speak to you yet again. Could you just explain something to me? I mean, clearly China very unhappy about this visit by Pelosi. Now, we knew this was always going to irritate China. What I don't quite understand is that Nancy Pelosi's, or the United States, has sort of tried to distance itself from this visit, and yet she arrived on what would have been Air Force One, the United States plane. So clearly it wasn't that unofficial.
Well, no, I mean, she gets to travel on that plane, not because it's the presidential plane, but because on delegations you can use various different planes on that purpose. Remember, Nancy Pelosi, though, is not a member of the US government as such. The government is run from the White House, it's the executive branch. They were clearly trying to damp down this, whereas she is from Congress, the legislative branch, and they're making up their own minds about whether to do, and I think, of course, she was right to do so.
That's very interesting. So, obviously, this is the highest level visit by a US official, I think, since 97 or something like that. This is very significant, I think. And obviously, we know Nancy Pelosi has felt very strongly about Taiwan for a very long time. I've seen clips of her back in the day supporting Taiwan. And in terms of its governance, it sees itself as self-governing. China believes it is still part of China. What's your take on that?
Well, of course, historically, Taiwan would say that China is part of it. Because it does. Because, technically, we are talking about a split in a civil war that was never resolved between, obviously, Mao and Chiang Kai-shek. Now, that's obviously ancient history. But what you have now is a thriving liberal democracy in the form of Taiwan, with a very important economy, very important ally to the free world, basically, right on the doorstep of an authoritarian, increasingly aggressive, hostile, also important economy, China. And the two of them are obviously not seeing eye to eye. What China would like to do, of course, is to recapture, if you like, or reunite with Taiwan as part of its agenda. Taiwan's not, of course, thinking it's going to turn China its way. It just wants to live peacefully and move forwards. Although, of course, there is an independence movement as well that would like to declare formal, we are not two Chinas anymore, we are our own country.
And obviously that is gathering pace. Now, just tell us why Taiwan is so significant, important, why it's strategically important, and also in terms of its finances and what it does, what it makes.
Well, obviously, on a strategic level, what you have here is part of, if you like, the free world cordon that keeps China penned in from the Pacific Ocean. If you think about it, you've got South Korea, you've got Japan, you've got Taiwan, and then you've got further down the Philippines and such like, all democratic free world countries that are in China's way between the vast expanse of the Pacific and then the US, which is, of course, its main strategic competitor. So strategically, it's a very important place. And, of course, the US Navy frequently, and we ourselves have done the same thing, have done freedom of navigation sails through the Taiwan Straits or nearby to show that these are international waters and we can travel within them. China would like it to be their own lake. And economically, it's a major source of electronic infrastructure in particular, other things too, but computer chips, processors, the things that power pretty much everything in our homes and in our daily lives, a large chunk of that comes from Taiwan, and that's why it's so important economically.
Yeah, so what is China trying to do with this show of strength? So I'm reading here that China is using some of their most advanced weapons, the DF-17 hypersonic missiles, the J-20 stealth fighter jets. Is this just a show of strength, or should we be more concerned that they're going to do something else? They're encroaching upon Taiwanese, the Taiwanese borders. Is this more concerning than it first looks?
Well, it's a threatening manoeuvre, there's no doubt about that. When missiles are fired around your land, you've got to feel threatened. I mean, imagine if the French lobbed some this way. It wouldn't be regarded to a friendly light. The reality is, though, that China right now does not have the force disposition in place to mount an invasion of Taiwan. It doesn't mean that won't happen. One of the goals of China is to reunite, and there's no prospect in my mind of Taiwan voluntarily coming into the communist embrace. So that means that at some point there may well be a military invasion of Taiwan. And China's showing, look, we're here, we've got the capability to do this, we've got very advanced weapons, and we are showing off, if you like, to avoid the loss of face that we think's occurred because Pelosi's visited. Now we're trying to get our own back. And a lot of this is domestic politics, David. This is Xi Jinping trying to show his domestic constituents that Chinese prestige and power is alive and well, despite what he would regard as a blow through that visit.
That's very interesting indeed. So very like Putin indeed, sort of having a narrative for his own people with regards a different narrative internationally. Just in terms of Taiwan and how it's viewed by the others, the United Kingdom does not recognise Taiwan as an independent state, neither does the United States. In fact, I was just reading those that do recognise it. I think there are only 13 countries, many of them very small ones.
Well, that's correct. I mean, because China has made it an item of policy that you cannot recognise both countries, basically, because it maintains there is only one China, essentially. So you have to choose. And obviously, over the years, many, many countries have switched sides, if you like, from Taiwan to the China side and said, look, it's obvious China's a bigger economy, we've got to do business with them, and so we're going to have formal diplomatic representation in that way. But you probably know, David, that we, of course, do have the equivalent of a Taiwanese ambassador here in the UK, and all the countries that have no relations formally with Taiwan have very thriving relationships on economic levels and through something called the Taiwan Representative Office. So basically we're saying, yes, okay, formally we're recognising China, but we're also recognising that Taiwan exists. And we're not going to just, kick it out and to the side. It's a real country with a lot of people who are Democrats, and we want to support it as well.
So two quick questions. In terms of the United States, what will they be trying to do now? Are they trying to downplay that visit now? And certainly from the president, what will his thinking be from here?
Well, obviously, the visits happened, and so as a result, what Joe Biden has to decide is where he sits on this issue fundamentally. Is he on the side of the free world? Is he going to make a strong sort of statement, ultimately, that, Nancy Pelosi could do what she wanted in this regard, and it wasn't his place to stop her, and as such, he's going to take seriously any threats from Xi? Or is he going to, sort of continue peddling this line, oh, it wasn't our fault, please forgive us, type thing? I think the latter would be a terrible mistake. What's quite obvious to all of us is that, and we've seen this in, of course, the Ukraine situation, that if you allow despots to believe that they can get away with threatening behaviour, and if you say, okay, you were right, we were wrong, then the answer is not that they stop their aggressive action, but they increase their aggressive action as a response. And I was heartened, at least today, to see the US is sending the USS Ronald Reagan, which is, of course, an aircraft carrier with its strike group, to the waters southeast of Taiwan to keep a monitoring position. That's a strong statement by the Americans to say, all right, you've had your fun for a moment, China. This ends now. We're sending our own sort of force into the area.
And I assume that will obviously be taken seriously by China. It's always such a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed, Alan. That's Dr. Alan Mendoza, who is the Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society. So that's talking about China's reaction to the fact that Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan. It's time for the